All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 5 of Apple TV's Ted Lasso, entitled Rainbow. The Rainbow title, I think, is not just pretty easy to see why it was used, but I think it was done pretty damn well, the way they incorporated it within the episode. Or I guess I could say, they probably had the episode already planned out and they just say, okay, here's the title, as opposed to get what I just implied, which is that they came up with the title first and then interjected that into the episode. But really well done on their part, I think, with the title. So it's referring to the Rolling Stones song, She's a Rainbow, which is initially referenced as the ringtone that Higgins has for his wife. And in this episode, he tells a nice story about, how he met his wife, because Rebecca wants to know about how he branded himself when he was trying to, I guess, court her. And he tells this story about being in a bar and doing air guitar and spilling beer on all of himself. And she hands him a dirty bar towel to clean himself off. And, he says she truly is my rainbow. And he tells her essentially, when it comes to, courting someone or being or branding yourself, to the best brand is to be yourself, be who you are. And they do a nice callback with that later by having Roy come to the realization that he'd rather be coaching than being a TV analyst. And they play the song during this there's so many different tie-ins right here. It's really cool how they did this. But they have him doing this run from the studio to the game, and that is very reminiscent of a moment early in the episode where Ted says that he likes communism, and everybody's like, "What?" And he says rom-communism, and they have a whole thing about rom-coms where they run off extras and whatnot. And that sequence of like him running from one place to another, like him leaving the person he doesn't want to be with, which is the announcing job, to run to the person he does want to be with, which is the coaching job. And so that's very rom-com-esque to have him, running from one to the other. And they play She's a Rainbow while he's running. And then he arrives at the stadium and he says something like, Ted says to him, "It's nice to have you, coach." He says, "You had me at coach." So again, that's another nice little reference to a famous rom-com line as well. So I think they did a really good job of interweaving the song with the rom-com reference from earlier. So they did a great job with rom-com and with that song. So I just repeated myself for absolutely no fucking reason. I'm really rusty right now. I have no idea why I'm so rusty. It's only been like 5 days, but bear with me. I'm getting there. But yeah, I thought that was really good. But I did have some issues here, and I think the issues are less with the episode itself and more with, I think, the direction of the show and how it's been, how the story arcs have played out so far, I think would be the best way to put it. So I thought this was a strong episode. It had some good laughs. I see a lot of potential here, and when I say see a lot of potential, I'm talking about the show moving forward. But the problem is that I've seen that potential all season, but there's story arcs that they continue to set up that they don't pay off, or that they skip over, that they forget about. And I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with that, right? So, last week we skipped forward way ahead in time from a point where they had, they broke their tie streak with a loss. And we skipped forward, and now they were like 4-4-12 or 4-4-14 or something like that, right? So we missed all sorts of games at this point, wins and losses. And when Sam had his protest with his with the Dubai Air situation, I thought it was smart that they didn't show us the game and show us them getting that loss, because the loss was less important than Sam's breakthrough, right? But then they skip forward. They skip so far in time, the following episode, that we don't see how they get to the 4-4. We don't see any fallout from Sam essentially throwing his country under the bus, his country's leadership under the bus. We see no fallout from that. And I thought that was an interesting potential direction for Sam. And I don't like setting up character arcs like that, like something for Sam like that, but making it feel like it's going to be something that can play out for the season, but having it just be self-contained to that episode, because it feels empty, like there's no closure to that. And again, we skip forward ahead in time here, and we find out that the team is and this is another part that I didn't particularly care for. We find out in like an offhand comment that they're like on the wrong side of relegation, and I still find myself wondering, like, how many games are we not seeing that they win or they lose? Like, I don't really know what's going on here, and it's making me uncomfortable that even though they're skipping over things that we don't necessarily need, it's making me lack confidence in their ability to follow through on story arcs and character arcs that we do need. So let me check out my notes and give you guys an example. Oh yeah, the biggest example to me is Nate. The first, I think, 3 episodes, Nate was being a dick to like his replacement, to the players, like being a real smart ass, being really cocky. And then in this episode, not only do we see essentially none of that, but one of the main arcs in this episode is Rebecca and Keeley teaching Nate to be more assertive. And I'm like, so he's essentially, the show has reverted him back to season 1 Nate, which, again, like, I don't have a problem with season 1 Nate, but I have a problem with them setting up a story arc that made it look like Nate's going to become kind of an asshole, even, as a response to being bullied for all of season 1. Now he's a coach, but now he's getting kind of cocky, becoming kind of an asshole. I'm thinking like, oh, this is an interesting story arc for Nate. And now we're right back to him being a pushover. And I'm really confused at the direction they're going with Nate. And they close out this episode making it look like Nate is unhappy with Roy rejoining the team. And again, I like that story arc potentially. Like, I like to see how that would play out. But now I'm left to wonder, like, is that going to play out, or is this just a moment? Like, just this one moment where it's like, oh, like, Nate's unhappy about this. All right, hope you don't care to see how that plays out, because we're not going to do it. So I don't know, and I really want to see that. But I'm concerned with the amount of plot lines and character arcs that they're setting up and not paying off. Let's see, what else do I have here? So another thing that I'm wondering about here. Oh shit, I lost my space. Oh, I mentioned the relegation thing already. So this episode, we see it ends with a pretty good moment, right? But I'm also wondering, like, why don't we see? So the episode ends with Roy arriving, and we see Nate's physical reaction. Ted even makes a kind of a weird kind of reaction, almost like he's second guessing the decision to have Roy come on as a coach. And the episode ends, but we don't see how Roy's motivational tactics with Isaac. It clearly worked for Isaac, but we don't see how did this play out in the game? Like, and they spent the whole episode building up this game, like this is a big, what was the name of the team? Something Wednesday, and they're playing them on Saturday, and Ted's making a big deal, like we need Isaac ready for this game. So he's building up this game, and then the episode ends with us not seeing how Roy's ability to kind of like get Isaac's mind right, how that plays out for Isaac, how Roy showing up at the game is gonna motivate the team or help them. Like, so we don't see that. And earlier in the season, I would have put money that the next episode we're gonna see how that happens. But now I feel like next episode I don't think we're gonna see this game at all. We might only find out what happened in it through an offhand comment or something like that, or we may not find out at all, and we're just gonna move on to something entirely different. And the whole point of the episode was to show Roy moving from learning about being himself and doing what he wants to do for his quote unquote brand, which he wants to coach. So it was the whole episode just about Roy making the transition from what do they call it on there, pundit to coach, and we're just gonna kind of like use this Isaac storyline to feed into the Roy character. Or are we gonna see how this affected the team? Because I am interested in what happens with the characters, but I'm also interested in what happens with the team. And we have skipped over a whole lot of stuff with this team, and I'm curious, like what's going to happen with the team as far as like relegation and whatnot. So, I'm not very confident in their ability, not ability, but the desire to show how the events of each episode, especially what happens with each character and their arcs, how that impacts the team. And I feel like they don't really have a strong desire to show that. Nope, I talked about that already. I told you I'm fucking rusty for some reason. So episode 1 or 2, something like that. I said, oh, it's pretty obvious that this banter app is going to have Rebecca and Ted talking to one another, and they're going to fall for one another, and then they're going to realize that, oh shit, it's Rebecca, oh shit, it's Ted. And I predicted that in episode 1 or 2, so I kind of got to stick by it, and I will. But now I'm not so sure about that because they made that the obvious play by having Rebecca doing the text during the game, and she's like, I'm at this football game, and he's like, oh, who's your team? And she's like, it's too personal. And then they cut to Ted smiling at his phone and then putting it away. So the show wants us to believe that it is Ted that she is talking to, which now makes me no longer believe it's Ted. But and I don't know if I would see Ted. I could see Ted quoting a poet, but we haven't seen Ted like reading any poetry books or anything like that. Whereas we see Coach Beard reading all the time. As a matter of fact, I paused in the beginning of the episode to see what book he was reading, just to see if I had to rewind to see if the book he was reading was like a book of poetry or something like that might contain that. It doesn't make sense to me that Coach Beard would be that person, but I was looking for any clues that I could find, and the only clue that they have points to Ted, which makes me think it's no longer Ted. But at least they brought that back, which is nice. So a couple of thoughts on this episode. I really liked a few of the moments here. Like I like the shrink asking, I shouldn't call her the shrink, the therapist asking Ted if he wanted her to talk to Isaac. And he says, no, we should have a big dog do it. And Nate goes, I'll do it. And Ted laughs. Coach Beard does not. And then later we see, again, Nate looking displeased with Roy coming on as a coach. And I hope that they play out an angle of Roy essentially taking Nate's place as someone who is more respected by Ted than Nate is. And Nate's self-doubt creeping in again. But I really want to see a solid arc from Nate and not like a herky-jerky like, oh, Nate's shy and lacks confidence to now Nate's assertive. Now Nate's sensitive and insecure again. And now, I don't need I don't want the back and forth. I want to see an arc, not a back and forth. So really curious what's going to happen there. But in that scene, she says something like, you know what's wrong with Isaac? And he says, yeah, he's a wigwam and a teepee. And she says, what's that? And Coach Beard says, he's too tense. I love their dad jokes. I like when Roy said that Keely had somebody who wanted to talk to him, a mustachioed person that he doesn't like, and he said it could be he's thinking it was gonna be Wario or his aunt. I like the Wario reference. I mentioned the you had me a coach being a nice callback to the rom-communism talk from earlier. Nate spitting on that mirror. I don't know how that makes him a big badass to spit on it. Like, is that what badass Nate does? Spit on people? And I don't know. Incredibly, I don't know. That was so weird. That was so outside of his character that it made it really funny. And I really like the scene where they're going to the location that where Ted and Isaac are going to the location that Roy texted him. And they're like, where is he? And Ted's like, I'm going to go text him. And he sends the text, and you just see like the light up Ted's face, light up Roy's face, and he looks all scary and shit, and they jump. I thought that was a really well edited scene. That wouldn't have worked any other way. But again, there's really a lot to like here. Like I said, I thought the episode was really funny. I thought it set up a lot of really good character arcs for future episodes. But I'm still very concerned with kind of like the herky-jerky nature of the narrative here. How it's like it skips over things that I think are important. We're seeing all sorts of back and forth with Nate's character. And it kind of seems like they're going more for... It seems like they're trying to really push like the heartfelt, heartwarming things that came a little bit more naturally in season 1. And I think if you kind of work toward that narrative, because you look at the narrative for season 1, it was very clear cut. It was like, Ted comes over, the country hates him, and he kind of like uses his endearing personality to kind of win everyone over. Now it was very straightforward, and you see his personality become infectious and and just kind of bleed into all the other characters, and it makes the show feel like, you know, very heartwarming, but it also feels very like a family almost. Which is why I say every week, like, I like spending time with these characters, and that's still the case. I love spending time with these characters every week. I do truly enjoy every episode just from a natural, you know, visceral perspective. Like, just sitting here watching it, I enjoy it. But I am concerned about the narrative direction here. I don't know what to expect at this point. I'm hoping that they continue to play out some of these things, but at this point, it's pretty clear that I can't necessarily rely on them to play out every potential story or character arc that they set up, and that's troubling to me. But as of right now, the show is still very enjoyable. I can see why people are disappointed in season 2, but I kind of feel like the disappointment comes from people like myself who are looking at it from almost through a magnifying glass, as opposed to just sitting back and watching it. You sitting back and watching it, everything's gravy to you right now. But if you're me and you're looking at like these angles with Nate, these angles with Roy, the Sam situation, this Isaac situation this week, it feels like they want to give these characters these moments within these episodes, but then they're setting up things that they don't pay off, and that troubles me a bit. So I'm not going to keep harping on it, but again, I thought this was an enjoyable episode, but I do have some issues, and we'll kind of see where things play out. I'm really curious. If you haven't watched the Future State video that I posted, I believe it's Future State 4. If you haven't watched it, I'll say right here, I was out of town this past weekend, which is why I didn't get this video up on Friday, and I will be out of town the next 2 weekends as well. So I will not have my Ted Lasso videos up on Friday when it drops. It'll probably be a couple days later. So just a reminder of that. So I don't know when I'll see you guys. It'll probably be around a week from today, maybe a little bit earlier for episode 6. Till then, peace.